have two questions really shortly. Do you think that Pakistani military see Taliban as a real potential threat, especially Mr. Kailani? And the other question is, what would be your strategy, or what would you advocate when it comes to the Afghan drug problem, specifically when it comes to the cooperation between U.S. and Russia? So basically, some issues that they can,
Quick answer to both of those on the perceptions of the military of the Taliban. Let me make clear that almost all military elites live in certain bubbles. They are given the information that their underlings think they want to hear. I am firmly convinced that General Kiani, as with all of his predecessors and his counterparts in other countries, lives in such a bubble. He is told, and he is remember, grew up as all other senior Pakistani military officials did, training jihadist groups to fight against India and training them to achieve strategic depth in Afghanistan, and never believing that they would turn around and turn on their own country. And if they're doing so, it's something that they have under control. They're loyal to us. We created them. They won't bite the hand that feeds them. He continues to be told that perhaps up until maybe day before yesterday. But I believe he lives in a bubble. I believe all such elites do. And I believe that they are very hubristic by nature, and that one thing is for sure, if what I'm saying is even just a general trend, there's no reason why he would somehow be the shining exception to this psychological kind of rule of leadership. So I believe I would be very worried to take his word for anything, and our having done so is precisely part of the reason why we're in this mess right now. So in other words, to make a long story short, he drastically underestimates the threat that they pose to the country, and probably will continue to. Probably through the current operations will try to convince us that they do have it under control. They don't. They don't, and they probably won't, and it will continue to underscore the weakness of the military as an institution capable of holding the country together. And I'm not an expert on the drug situation. The Afghan drug production dilemma is not just an AFPAC problem. It goes way, way beyond that into Iran, Europe, beyond. It certainly affects Russia. Russia has a role in it. All countries need to do more to develop alternative to not only do counter-drug interdictions and things like that on all of the relevant borders, but also to promote other industries and so forth, so that the country becomes less reliant on that industry.
No.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. There are some analysts who say that every time an unmanned predator drone bombs and decimates a wedding party, it's thanks to certain pro-Taliban and pro-Al-Qaeda elements within the ISI, and that it is in large part because of some elements within the ISI that if it weren't for them, Osama bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri would have been captured already. So I would like to ask you, gentlemen, your opinion on to what extent this hoodwinking and double dealing within our engagement with the Pakistani military intelligence apparatus has been going on.
I want to take two different cracks at it. One is that I mentioned again Lashkar al-Taiba. This is a group that was created by the ISI, but it's not the ISI. So the ISI kind of farms out the dirty work. But what Lashkar did after the 2001 Afghanistan war is they help Al-Qaeda people get out of Afghanistan into Pakistan. They can help, even today, move them around. Al-Qaeda people move around safe houses that they have all over the place in Kashmir and Punjab. And they can even get them out to mainly the Middle East. So the ISI doesn't have to be officially doing it, but they kind of aid and abet. So that's point one. Point two, on drones. I'd love to take a vote here. Do you think the drones attacks are effective? I think it's a tough call. There's no doubt that the senior leadership of Al-Qaeda and some of the bad Taliban, the Afghan Taliban guys who are fighting Americans, killing Americans right now, have been taken out. There's been a lot less collateral damage now than there was 6 months ago, and certainly a year ago. So the ability of these drones to hit the bad guys, and pretty big bad guys, without collateral damages is improving. Nonetheless, you have to look in perspective. Is it worthwhile to eliminate 10 or 12 or 30 people at the risk of losing 170 million people? You know, what's the bigger fish? Pakistan or this group of Al-Qaeda leadership?
I mean, you know, the weaker the state becomes, the more the U.S. military will feel like it has no choice but to conduct these attacks because it's not getting the help that it needs to accomplish the mission of taking out top Al-Qaeda or Taliban commanders. So you have a vicious circle there. What will likely happen is both and. In other words, the U.S. will continue these strikes, but by also conducting a so-called civilian surge, you know, putting in more, you know, economic and other actors on the ground there, and trying to forge more local tribal allies, it will also get better intelligence and information as to where some of its targets are, and therefore continue to increase the effectiveness or accuracy of its targeting. So you're going to have both happening at the same time rather than just one. So yes, you conduct the strikes, yes, you may have a little bit of collateral damage, but you also have some activity going on there that attempts to compensate for that and to apologize for it rather than saying oops or denying it, as has also been the case. So we're going to wind up seeing both of those things happening at the same time.
Just a little bit on this topic of drones. How much of this would be possible without, I mean, drones seem to be, regardless of how effective, how targeted, how few civilian casualties there are, it's nonetheless an extremely brazen and visible breach of Pakistani territorial control, or what is de jure control. How much of this would be possible with covert operations under the radar? And isn't it just kind of sabotaging our whatever popular appeal or just goodwill we might have, regardless of the amount of money we pump into good causes?
Well, a couple of weekends. I mean, when your popularity appeal is zero, you can't actually go below zero in this case. So, in other words, I think the attitude is we got to do what we got to do. And the other thing is there's kind of a joke about this out there, which is that if the Pakistani government keeps on telling us, don't do these drone attacks, they're harming the cause, and they're alienating more and more people every day. And yet, on the other hand, they keep asking us to give them control over the drones and to sell them a few on the side so that they can use them. It's obviously highly entertaining to hear both messages coming from the same government at the same time. So they don't want their sovereignty breached, but they love to have the drones so that they can do the very thing that is making us unpopular. How much more popular is it going to make them to be operating their own drones? Probably not as well, and probably leading to more civilian casualties. So
I would say that it's a fact that the ISI helped with the targeting of Al-Qaeda people. They gave,
absolutely they have.
It wasn't necessarily direct, but it's part of the bureaucracy. There's a bureaucracy within ISI that finds out where these guys are and passes on the information to the Americans. I think they sit in Nevada. That's where these drones are operated out of someplace in Nevada, so it's like a video game, screens and everything. So that's point number one. And I forgot point number two, so let's take another question.
In terms of the economic aid and sort of the civilian aspect of an influx of aid on the ground, do you think that's the best way to go about it? And like, how do you foresee the best sort of economic efficiency if the government isn't to be trusted? And also, is that sort of civilian impact preferable to this Pakistan aid conference sort of thing?
I wanted to say, again, that it's not just aid, it's more than aid. It's the trade and development that goes with trade and foreign direct investment. But I also want to say another thing, which is, if you ask any Pakistani, and I talk to them all the time in London, they always come back to education. Pakistan has a lot of schools. They even have a lot of hospitals. But no doctors or teachers.